The galaxy had been under the suffocating grip of the Dominion for centuries. Its iron fist stretched across countless planets, crushing any hope of freedom. The Dominion was not just a regime. It was a force of nature, unyielding and unstoppable. No species had dared to challenge them. No rebellion had lasted long enough to pose a true threat. Every planet they conquered fell into despair. The people were controlled, their will bent, and their spirits broken. The citizens of the galaxy have been taught to live in fear, to obey without question, or face annihilation. For most, this was the only reality they had ever known. But there was one world that had remained off the Dominion's radar for far longer than anyone anticipated: Earth. For centuries, the Dominion had forgotten about this insignificant planet, tucked away in a quiet corner of the universe. To them, Earth was nothing more than a forgotten speck, unworthy of attention. The humans who lived there were primitive, barely advanced enough to make their way off their own world. Yet the Dominion made one critical mistake. They underestimated the potential of the humans. While they focused their efforts on expanding their empire, Earth quietly developed in the shadows. No one knew the true power humanity was capable of, except for a few who had been preparing for a day like this. It all started with a signal, a strange, faint pulse, barely detectable by even the most advanced Dominion technology, flickered through the vastness of space. It was a distress signal, but not just any ordinary one. This signal was a call for help, a cry for assistance from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The message was simple, yet chilling. Humanity is ready to fight back. The Dominion's highest commanders were baffled. Earth, the humans. It made no sense. They had never even noticed this planet as a threat, much less a place where something dangerous could grow. It was so far removed from the politics of the galaxy. The only humans who had ever ventured beyond their planet had been explorers and dreamers. Yet this signal was undeniable. The Dominion's intelligence network worked tirelessly to decrypt the message. They scored their records, looking for any indication of humanity's potential, but there was nothing. The humans were nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history, one that had long been forgotten. But the Dominion couldn't ignore it. They sent a fleet of ships to investigate, a small, efficient force. They would destroy any threat before it had a chance to grow. The humans, as they believed, were still nothing but ants waiting to be crushed. No one could resist the Dominion's might, not even a single planet in the farthest corner of space. Meanwhile, on Earth, a small group of individuals knew exactly what was happening. Hidden beneath the surface, in the deep bunkers of secret research facilities, the humans had been preparing for this day for years. They had studied the Dominion, learned their tactics, and reverse-engineered their technologies. What the Dominion failed to realize was that Earth had been silent for a reason. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, that moment had arrived. The leaders of the rebellion, a group of brilliant scientists, military strategists, and former high-ranking officers from across the world, gathered in their underground command center. They watched as the Dominion fleet neared Earth's orbit, a steady procession of massive ships descending from the stars. The team knew what was coming. The Dominion was going to destroy Earth without hesitation, but they had a plan, a daring, risky, and potentially catastrophic plan. "We're ready," Commander Elias Grant said, standing at the head of the table, his voice firm but filled with a hint of excitement. The plan was simple, but it was their only shot. "Our fleets are in position. The moment they land, we strike with everything we've got." The team around him nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They weren't just fighting for Earth's survival. They were fighting for the survival of the galaxy. The Dominion had to be stopped, and only Earth's warriors, with their ingenuity and unrelenting will, could do it. The countdown began. As the Dominion fleet drew closer, humans and their allies on Earth watched the skies with bated breath. The warships loomed in the distance, their enormous size casting a shadow over the planet below. But the humans didn't flinch. They had prepared for this, and now, They would see if their resolve was enough to turn the tide of the galaxy. Back on the Dominion flagship, Admiral Korvac stood at the command center, surveying the approaching planet. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the monitors, unaware of the preparations being made below. To him, Earth was nothing more than a minor nuisance. His mind was already focused on the next conquest, the next world to fall under the Dominion's rule. The humans, in his eyes, were nothing more than weaklings who had no place in the grand scheme of the galaxy. "Prepare to commence the operation," Korvac ordered, his voice echoing through the command room. "Destroy everything. Leave nothing but ashes." The Dominion fleet began its descent, the powerful engines of the ships cutting through the atmosphere like a knife through butter. But as they neared Earth's surface, something unexpected happened. The signal from Earth, once faint and distant, grew stronger. It was a countermeasure, one that the Dominion hadn't anticipated. The humans were fighting back. Suddenly, the sky lit up with fire. A volley of missiles shot into the air, launched from Earth's surface, followed by the hum of energy shields and the roar of massive war machines. The humans were not just sending a signal, they were sending a message. And the message was clear. Earth was not to be underestimated. The first Dominion ship to be hit exploded in a massive fireball, its hull shattered by the force of the strike. The humans had built weapons capable of taking down the most powerful warships in the galaxy, and they were ready to use them. The skies filled with chaos as the battle began. The Dominion was forced to respond, sending waves of fighters and assault ships to counter the humans' surprise attack. But it was too late. The humans were no longer the insignificant, helpless creatures the Dominion had once believed them to be. Back in the command center, Elias watched the chaos unfold on the monitors. His heart raced, but there was no turning back now. The fight for Earth, and for the galaxy, was on. The humans had broken their chains, and they were determined to make the Dominion feel the full force of their fury. "We've got them on the ropes," Elias said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "This is just the beginning." As the battle raged on, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same. Earth had risen, and the Dominion's reign of terror was about to meet its end. As the battle for Earth raged, the Dominion's shock began to ripple across the galaxy. The once silent planet had erupted into chaos, and the fleet of invaders that had descended to crush humanity was now facing an unexpected fight. Earth had managed to send a clear message. It was not the helpless world the Dominion had written off. But how had humanity managed to prepare for this moment? How had they hidden their strength for so long? The answer lay beneath the surface, in the shadows where humanity's brightest minds had been working in secret. For decades, Earth had secretly studied the Dominion, its war tactics, and its weapons. The human race, underestimated for so long, had quietly advanced, accumulating technology far beyond what the Dominion had believed possible for such a primitive species. Deep underground, in hidden research facilities scattered across the planet, Earth's top scientists had built advanced weapons and warships, ships designed not just to defend, but to strike at the heart of the Dominion's power. Humanity's ingenuity had flourished in these isolated labs, where secret projects funded by anonymous donations and clandestine organizations came to life. The weapons were designed with one purpose in mind: to turn the tide of the war, to give the galaxy's oppressed people a fighting chance. The first major surprise for the Dominion came when Earth unleashed its newly developed fleets. Thousands of ships, hidden within the deepest caverns of the planet's oceans and remote mountain ranges, emerged like a sudden storm. They were fast, equipped with energy shields stronger than any Dominion technology, and their weapons were devastatingly efficient. What had once been thought impossible for Earth's people, advanced interstellar travel and weaponry, was now a terrifying reality. The first battle of this new war took place over Earth itself. The Dominion fleet, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the human ships, scrambled to defend their positions. The humans' first assault came in the form of high-velocity missiles and precision plasma cannon fire, obliterating several Dominion warships before they could even launch counterattacks. The surprise attack caused chaos, sending shockwaves through the Dominion command. Admiral Korvac, who had led the initial assault against Earth, watched in disbelief as his fleet began to falter. He had never anticipated that Earth could be hiding such formidable power. His fingers gripped the console as he barked orders, trying to regain control. He had been certain that the Dominion would crush humanity effortlessly. But now, the humans were striking back with weapons and technology that seemed to have materialized out of thin air. "Deploy all fighters." Korvac's voice boomed through the ship. "We cannot let them take control of the skies." Despite the Dominion's best efforts to retaliate, the human fleet remained relentless, dodging the enemy's blasts with agility that surprised even the most seasoned Dominion pilots. The ships, outfitted with powerful cloaking devices and maneuverable engines, could appear out of nowhere, delivering devastating blows before retreating into the shadows once more. It was clear that the humans had learned from their enemies' mistakes, and they had developed strategies that made them unpredictable in ways the Dominion was not prepared for. On Earth's surface, the rebellion was in full swing. Soldiers, civilians, and engineers alike worked in unison, manning the newly constructed war machines that had been hidden for years. Even those who had once been regular citizens found themselves picking up weapons, joining the fight to protect their home and their galaxy. The rebellion had become a symbol of hope to the galaxy's oppressed species, a rallying point for those who had lived under the Dominion's control for far too long. The human rebellion had become a beacon of defiance. As the fighting escalated, news of humanity's resistance spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Soon, ships from other oppressed planets began to join the fight. The Trinari, a reptilian species whose planet had been ravaged by the Dominion's war machines, sent fleets to assist Earth. The Jean, a race of intelligent beings who had been enslaved by the Dominion for centuries, also rallied behind Earth's banner. What had started as a simple defense of Earth had now become a full-fledged rebellion, a galaxy-wide uprising against the tyranny of the Dominion. But despite the growing alliance, the Dominion was not about to relinquish its control without a fight. Korvac, now more determined than ever, ordered the deployment of the Dominion's most fearsome weapon, the Eclipse Cannon, a planet-destroying device capable of wiping out entire worlds with a single shot. If they could not stop the human rebellion, then they would erase Earth and its newfound allies from existence. The countdown to launch the Eclipse Cannon began, and the rebels on Earth knew that their time was running out. With every passing minute, the Dominion's weapon grew closer to being activated, but the humans weren't backing down. They had a plan, a risky, dangerous plan, but it was their last hope. In the heart of Earth's command center, Elias Grant and his team of military strategists and engineers worked feverishly. They had been preparing for this moment for years. If they couldn't stop the Eclipse Cannon, it would mean the end of everything. They had one shot to infiltrate the Dominion's stronghold, to sabotage the cannon before it could be used. "This is it," Elias said, looking at the team gathered around him. "We either succeed or it's over." His voice was steady, but inside, the weight of the moment pressed heavily on him. This wasn't just about saving Earth anymore. This was about saving the galaxy, about stopping an empire that had enslaved countless worlds. Every life in the galaxy now rested on their shoulders. As the rebel ships prepared to launch their attack on the Dominion stronghold, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the lion's den. They would have to infiltrate deep within the Dominion's defenses, disable the cannon, and escape before the full might of the Dominion came crashing down on them. But the humans had something the Dominion didn't: hope. They had the will to fight, to survive, and to push forward against all odds. And now, they were about to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. Suspense. As the first wave of ships launched into the stars, the clock was ticking. Would humanity's last hope be enough to stop the Eclipse Cannon, Or would Earth's defiance be erased from the galaxy's history forever? The skies above Earth burned with chaos. The Dominion fleet had already lost several ships, but its retaliation was swift and brutal. The battle for control of the planet had only just begun, and it was far from clear who would emerge victorious. In the heart of this relentless war, the rebels, the humans, prepared to carry out their most daring mission yet, to infiltrate the Dominion stronghold and destroy the Eclipse cannon before it could obliterate Earth. Earth's rebellion had turned into a movement that echoed across the galaxy. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival was now a full-scale war, and every oppressed species from the farthest reaches of space was watching. Hope was igniting like wildfire. Yet, even with the help of their new allies, the odds seemed overwhelming. The Eclipse cannon was located deep within the heart of the Dominion's capital fleet, a fortress that was said to be impenetrable. The rebellion's command center was alive with activity. The team of strategists and soldiers who had come together to defend Earth now focused their efforts on a critical mission that could change the tide of the war. Elias Grant stood at the center of the room, reviewing the mission plans one last time. "Here's the plan," Elias said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We infiltrate their stronghold, disable the Eclipse cannon, and get out, no matter what. If we fail, Earth is gone, and so is every hope of ending the Dominion's reign across the galaxy." Around him, the command team nodded, their faces set with grim resolve. The rebellion had been preparing for this moment for years, and now it had arrived. Every soldier, every scientist, every rebel had their role to play. It wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about the survival of countless worlds, worlds that had been oppressed, enslaved, and destroyed by the Dominion's merciless grip. The first challenge was to breach the Dominion's capital fleet, a task that seemed nearly impossible. The Dominion had constructed a massive space station, encased in layers of armored shields and fortified by waves of warships. It was a fortress in space, and anyone who attempted to infiltrate it had little hope of success. But the humans had one advantage that the Dominion didn't count on: their creativity. The human fleet had developed a series of cloaking technology and stealth fighters capable of slipping past even the most sophisticated sensors. Earth's rebel forces were no longer a ragtag group of civilians and soldiers. They were an army of highly trained warriors who had spent years planning and adapting to the Dominion's tactics. They understood how to use surprise and deception to their advantage, and they would need every ounce of that skill to navigate the labyrinth of Dominion defenses. The missions team, led by Elias himself, would board one of Earth's fastest stealth ships, known as Eclipse's Shadow, and slip past the Dominion fleet. Their goal was clear: reach the capital fleet's core, disable the Eclipse cannon, and destroy the Dominion's ability to annihilate Earth. The plan was risky, but it was the only one they had. As the rebel fleet moved into position, Elias could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He was not just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for every species that had been enslaved by the Dominion. The people who had watched in silence as their worlds were conquered, their freedom stolen. Elias knew that if they failed, humanity's defiance would be wiped from the history books, and the galaxy would fall deeper into the Dominion's iron grip. The Eclipse's Shadow and its accompanying fleet of stealth ships slowly began their descent toward the Dominion stronghold. The human ships, with their dark, sleek frames, moved in near silence, evading detection as they navigated through the dense field of enemy warships. The stealth fighters moved like ghosts, invisible in the vastness of space, but Elias knew they wouldn't be able to maintain this cloak for long. The closer they got to the capital fleet, the harder it would be to stay undetected. But there was no turning back now. Inside the Eclipse's Shadow, Elias and his team prepared for the next phase of the mission. The ship's advanced systems gave them an edge, but it was still a race against time. As they neared the capital fleet's outer defenses, a ripple of tension spread through the crew. They were moments away from the most dangerous part of the mission: breaching the Dominion's shields. "All systems are green," said Lieutenant Maya Stone, the ship's chief engineer. "We're locked on course, and the cloaking devices are holding steady." "Good," Elias replied, his eyes focused on the holographic display in front of him. "Now let's make sure it stays that way. Once we get inside their shield perimeter, there's no turning back. We'll have to fight our way through." The crew nodded in silence, understanding the gravity of what was about to happen. Everyone on board knew that their lives were on the line, and that the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. They had no choice but to succeed. As they reached the outer perimeter of the Dominion's capital fleet, the moment of truth arrived. The Eclipse's shadow slipped through the edge of the fleet, moving past the first line of defenses undetected. The rebel ship moved with eerie precision, its hull barely a shadow against the backdrop of stars. For a few precious moments, it seemed like they might actually make it inside. But just as they were about to breach the first wave of enemy defenses, a warning light flashed across the command panel. The Dominion sensors had detected an anomaly in their space, a small, unidentified object slipping past their sensors. The fleet's security systems were triggered, and the alarm blared across the capital ships. "They know we're here," Elias said, his voice calm despite the growing urgency. "Brace for impact." Before anyone could respond, the fleet's outer defenses launched a barrage of laser fire in their direction. The Eclipse's shadow rocked under the onslaught, but its shields held firm. The crew's breath caught as they felt the vibrations of the blasts shaking the hull. "We're in," shouted Maya, activating EMP pulse to disable the shields. With a sudden jolt, the ship emitted a powerful electromagnetic pulse that cascaded through the Dominion's defensive grid. The pulse knocked out their shields, leaving them vulnerable to attack. But the team knew they had only moments before the Dominion would adapt and retaliate. The Eclipse's shadow sped forward, weaving through the Dominion ships as the battle began in earnest. The human fleet engaged with the Dominion's warships, buying Elias and his team the time they needed to reach their destination. The rebels fought with every ounce of strength they had, using every tactic they'd learned to stay alive and to protect their mission. But the true challenge still lay ahead. They had to reach the heart of the Dominion's stronghold, deep within the capital fleet, where the Eclipse cannon was housed. And once they did, the real fight would begin. The Eclipse's shadow sped deeper into the heart of the Dominion's capital fleet, its engines barely a whisper in the vast emptiness of space. The crew was silent, each member focused on their task, knowing full well what was at stake. The mission had reached its most perilous stage. The Eclipse cannon lay just ahead, the weapon that could obliterate Earth in a single shot, and only the humans had the courage and the will to stop it. Inside the ship, Elias Grant stood at the command center, his eyes locked on the blinking red lights of the ship's control panel. Every second felt like an eternity. The Dominion had already detected their presence, and the clock was ticking. They had just moments before the full weight of the Dominion's retaliation would come crashing down on them. The Dominion had massive fleets positioned all around them, and they had only a handful of ships to protect their mission. This was the final push. Failure was not an option. "We're in," Lieutenant Maya Stone reported, her voice low but full of determination. "We've bypassed their first line of defenses. The Eclipse cannon should be in the next sector." "Good," Elias replied, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. "We have one shot at this. Everyone, stay sharp. We can't afford any mistakes." The ship continued its course toward the heart of the Dominion stronghold. Outside, massive warships loomed like shadows, their dark forms circling protectively around the central command station. The Eclipse's shadow moved through these giants, cloaked and nearly invisible, but each moment felt like a countdown to disaster. Inside the ship, the crew could feel the tension rising. The mission was simple in theory: disable the Eclipse cannon, destroy the Dominion's hold on the galaxy, and escape. But the reality was far more complex. The ship's stealth capabilities were pushing the limits of technology, and each twist and turn within the labyrinthine fleet took them deeper into enemy territory. With every new layer of defenses they breached, they felt the weight of the Dominion's watchful eyes on them. "We're almost there," Maya said, her voice slightly strained as she monitored the ship's systems. "Prepare for a rough landing. The central station is heavily guarded." "Understood," Elias responded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Everyone, get ready. The hard part starts now." As they neared the central sector, the Eclipse's shadow suddenly jolted, a violent tremor shaking the entire ship. The crew braced for impact, their bodies thrown against the restraints. Outside, an explosion of laser fire lit up the darkness as the Dominion fleet launched a barrage of retaliatory strikes. They had been detected, and the full force of the Dominion's power was about to descend upon them. "Shields at 70%, Maya reported, her voice tight. "We can't keep this up for long. We need to hit the central station now." "Full speed ahead," Elias barked. "We break through, no matter what. We don't have time to waste." The ship tore through the remaining barriers, blasting past Dominion warships that tried to lock onto them. The Eclipse's shadow was fast, but the Dominion had been preparing for a fight. Soon, dozens of enemy fighters emerged from the station, charging directly toward them with laser weapons locked. "We're too close to turn back now," Elias said, gritting his teeth as he piloted the ship with all the skill he had. "Keep them off us as long as you can, Maya." Maya's hands flew over the ship's controls, maneuvering them with a precision that defied the odds. She fired back at the pursuing Dominion ships, taking out a few before they could close in. The Eclipse's shadow twisted and turned, darting through the chaos as the space around them erupted in explosions. The once quiet ship was now a flashpoint in the heart of the battle. "We've reached the core," Maya said. "The Eclipse cannon is ahead." "Take us in," Elias ordered, his voice unwavering. "We need to disable the weapon. Fast." The central station was a massive, intimidating structure, its dark, metallic surface glittering with energy shields. The cannon itself was housed inside a chamber deep within the heart of the station. The team's objective was clear: disable the power core and destroy the cannon before it could fire. "Activating cloaking devices," Maya said, pressing a sequence of buttons. "We'll slip in undetected. But we need to get in quickly. Once we're inside, it's a straight shot to the core." The Eclipse's shadow entered the station's outer perimeter, a space of eerie silence, save for the distant hum of Dominion engines. The station's internal defenses were formidable: automated turrets, swarming drones, and massive energy shields designed to vaporize anything that came too close. But they had expected this. They had planned for every scenario. "Stay close," Elias ordered as they approached the core. "Once we land, we move fast." The ship descended toward the docking bay of the central station. As they landed, the doors slid open, revealing a dark, metallic corridor. The team of elite soldiers and engineers, led by Elias, filed out, their footsteps echoing on the cold, hard floor. Their weapons were ready, their nerves steel-tight. The closer they got to the core, the more the intensity of the situation became apparent. The walls were lined with massive energy conduits, and the air was thick with the hum of powerful machinery. Each step took them deeper into enemy territory, and they knew that every second counted. "Movement ahead," one of the soldiers whispered, pointing down the hall. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, and Elias knew that they weren't alone. Suddenly, a wave of Dominion soldiers appeared from the darkness, charging toward them with blinding speed. They had anticipated the human team's infiltration, and now they would try to stop them at all costs. "Take them down," Elias shouted. The humans engaged in a fierce firefight with the Dominion soldiers, their advanced weapons and tactics giving them the upper hand. The rebels fought fiercely, moving as one unit, but they could feel the pressure mounting. The Dominion's forces were endless, and they couldn't afford to be bogged down. "We're almost there," Maya called out from the rear of the group, her voice strained but filled with hope. The core is just up ahead. With a final push, Elias and his team broke through the last line of defense, reaching the chamber that housed the Eclipse cannon's core. The massive structure loomed before them, its energy pulses lighting up the room in an ominous rhythm. But they weren't out of danger yet. The final countdown to activate the weapon had already begun. The sound of blaster fire echoed through the narrow corridors of the Dominion's central station. Elias and his team pushed forward, their weapons flashing in the dim light as they cut down the Dominion soldiers who stood in their way. Every step was a gamble, every second a countdown to what would be the galaxy's most defining moment. The Eclipse cannon was just ahead, but so was the final obstacle between victory and annihilation. The Dominion's elite guards. "Keep pushing," Elias shouted, his voice barely audible over the explosions. "We're almost there." His heart was pounding in his chest, not just for Earth but for the countless worlds depending on their success. They couldn't afford failure. The Eclipse cannon's power core was mere moments away from fully charging, and once it reached critical mass, it could fire, obliterating Earth and any hope of rebellion across the galaxy. Maya Stone was at the rear, covering their backs, her eyes sharp as she scanned the hallway. "We're not alone," she called out. "They're closing in. There are too many." Elias glanced behind him. The Dominion forces, unrelenting and disciplined, were charging down the corridor in waves, their faces set in grim determination. It was clear they would stop at nothing to protect the Eclipse cannon and its deadly payload. "We need to get to the core now," Elias ordered. The team continued to push forward, reaching the large reinforced door that led to the heart of the station. Beyond it, the Eclipse cannon's power core hummed with lethal energy, its blue glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. "We're almost there," Maya said, her voice tight with strain. "I've locked onto the core's disabling sequence, but we need to activate it manually." Elias nodded, scanning the area. The Dominion was relentless. "Do it. We don't have much time." The team quickly set up defenses around the door, laying down suppressive fire as Maya worked her way to the control panel. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she didn't slow down. She was the team's most skilled engineer, and now her expertise was humanity's last hope. Come on," Maya muttered to herself as her fingers flew across the controls. The Dominion soldiers were drawing closer, and the energy in the air felt thick with tension. Every second was precious. She had to disable the core. If she failed, it would be the end for them all. The blaring alarms echoed in the background, the countdown continuing relentlessly. "Almost there," Maya said, her voice steady despite the chaos. 5 seconds. Elias's hand clenched around his weapon, eyes darting between the advancing Dominion soldiers and the flickering screen. The door to the core chamber remained open, but they were surrounded. The odds seemed impossible. "Get ready," Elias barked. Then, the countdown stopped. Maya let out a sigh of relief. "I've disabled the core's charging sequence. It's not firing." But the battle wasn't over. The Dominion soldiers had breached the door, and now the team was facing the full wrath of the Dominion's elite forces. They were outnumbered, but Elias's resolve was unwavering. "Defend the core," Elias shouted. "No one gets past us." As the Dominion soldiers surged into the room, the humans fought with everything they had. Blaster fire rang out, and the room was filled with the chaos of war. The rebels fought valiantly, their years of preparation and training coming to the forefront. Every move was calculated, each strike designed to push the Dominion forces back. For every Dominion soldier that fell, another took their place. The battle was fierce, and the air was thick with smoke and debris. But the humans refused to back down. Maya looked over at Elias, her face grim but determined. "We need to go. The station's self-destruct is imminent. We don't have much time." Elias nodded, the weight of the situation settling on him like a heavy cloak. They had stopped the Eclipse cannon, but now they had to get out alive. "Everyone, fall back," Elias ordered. "We're not done yet." The team fought their way toward the exit, but the Dominion wasn't finished. They had called reinforcements, and more soldiers were closing in. The humans pushed forward, knowing the clock was ticking. They couldn't let the Dominion win, not after everything they had sacrificed. As they reached the ship, the alarms intensified, signaling the self-destruct was moments away. They had to hurry. "We've got a problem," Maya shouted. "The ship's been damaged. It's going to be a rough takeoff." Elias didn't hesitate. "Do it. We'll make it work." The Eclipse's shadow roared to life, lifting off the ground just as the entire station began to shake. A massive explosion erupted behind them, the shockwave reverberating through space. The Eclipse's shadow shot forward, narrowly avoiding the blast radius as the station disintegrated in a fiery explosion that lit up the dark expanse of space. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief, their bodies slumping in their seats as they watched the destruction of the Dominion stronghold. But Elias's thoughts were far from finished. There was still work to do, more battles to fight, and the galaxy to save. "We did it," Maya said quietly, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We stopped the Eclipse cannon. Earth is safe, for now." Elias turned to her, his expression resolute. "We've won this battle, but the war isn't over. The Dominion will rebuild. We have to be ready." "Yeah," Maya agreed, staring out at the stars. "But for today, we've done the impossible. We've given the galaxy a chance to breathe again." The rebels sat in silence as the Eclipse's shadow soared through the stars, the wreckage of the Dominion stronghold fading behind them. The battle for Earth was over, but the fight for freedom was just beginning.